Okay. Ooh, let's get weird. What's going on, guys? I know I haven't done any videos like this in the past, but I'm going to start doing more tips and tricks and little things that I've learned in the past 6 years of doing video. So today what I wanted to talk to you guys about is things that I think can up your cinematic sequence game. Things that will make your cinematic sequences or your B-roll sequences stand out compared to pretty much thousands of other creators out there that are doing the same thing. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about would be composition. How you set up your shot, how you frame your shot, you know, the area that you decide to shoot is super critical when composing your image. Things that I usually look for is like leading lines that lead right to my subject, framing them in the left, the middle, or the right third of the frame, not framing my subject too high, too low. If you want to make your subject strong and confident, you usually shoot from a little bit lower angle. If you want your subject to look more sad or gloomy, or your scene to look sad or gloomy, you usually shoot from a higher angle. For things like interviews or like talking scenes, I like to have my camera at eye level or just below eye level. This helps keep the viewer's eyes on the subject the entire time and just makes your interview scenes look a lot better. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about would be creating depth within your shot. Things like bushes or buildings or objects to put in the foreground can create depth within your shot. Something that I like to stick to is I'll have a foreground, a midground, and a background. This helps get 3 layers within your scene and can separate the subject. Another thing that you need to keep an eye out is where the sun's at if you're shooting outdoors, or where your key light is. Something that I like to do to create depth in my images outdoors when I'm running and gunning, which is what I do a lot, would be to put the sun behind or off to one side of my subject. This helps separate them from the background while keeping them in the foreground. It makes them look really cinematic, and that's just how I prefer. Like if I show up and I see a situation, I'll almost always put the sun behind my subject if I'm using natural light with no fill or you know, no reflectors or anything like that. Another thing that goes right along with depth, which kind of takes us into our next point, is look for objects that you can pass through or pass by or do a pan or some sort of movement past. And movement is also another key thing when making things look way more cinematic. You can have a static shot, but static shots, you know, they don't really look as professional or as cinematic. They do have their place, but for the most part, I like to have some sort of movement, whether it's my subject or the camera or both, doing some sort of movement within my scene. So yes, movement in your video is critical when making things look cinematic. Another thing that I like to pay attention to is my sound or audio. When you're picking a soundtrack, try to pick something that fits the mood, because the soundtrack really determines the overall flow of your video and what you want your viewers to experience. Look for pacing, because almost all the time I time my cuts with the beat of the music, and that is like the backbone of your edit. I use soundstripe.com for all of my music personally because it's $15 a month. It's fairly cheap and they have some awesome sounds. Another thing that I like to do is add some subtle whooshes or hits or risers within my edit to kind of spice up, you know, those more rough transitions, you know, kind of make them blend together a little bit more. Another thing that I like to do is capture the actual sound from my scene. So I'll throw a shotgun mic on my camera and I'll get the subtle sounds that come along with the scenes I'm shooting, if that's footprints or that's hammers hitting or just any sounds that you're recording in the scene. Almost always looks best matched up within the edit. I mean, you can do a lot of sound design, but the best thing that I've found is record what you get, and if worst case scenario you don't use it, and you can touch it up with some hits and risers in the back. But sound is critical in a cinematic sequence, so I spend a lot of my time picking out a good soundtrack and picking out, you know, good sounds that will add to the sound design in my edits. The last tip that I can give you guys for people that are just starting out would definitely be color in your videos. And I know this is kind of vague, it's scary at first, it's intimidating. I was scared for a long time, I still am. Things like using LUTs, lookup tables for your videos, can step up the look of your film a lot. but you've got to be careful because some people will really overuse LUTs. They can make or break your image. They can add really cool cinematic look, or if you overdo it, they can make it look really vibrant and ugly and disgusting. So just watch your levels. I like to apply my LUT at around 50%, but that's with my custom Sony profile that I'm using, a Cine 4 profile. So it just depends on your camera, it depends on your lighting, it depends on your setup. But you know, play around with it because there's no right or wrong way. It's all what looks good to you guys. This is just what I've learned when making cinematic sequences, and I hope that one of these things can help you guys when you're making your cinematic sequences. If you guys like this video and you like these tips, leave a comment in the comment section, drop me a like, maybe hit the subscribe button if you're feeling really generous. And I've got a lot more content ideas coming for you guys in the near future, so make sure you hit the notification button so that you can keep up with what I've got coming. So thanks guys.